Hello, my name is Rodney Martin. I'm a volunteer down at the Village Church Farm Museum, and this is my second year of having a World War I exhibition to commemorate the 100 years from the 1914-18 First World War. The First World War has been a great passion of mine since listening to a lot of the octogenarians who've actually sort of opened up for the very first time on the First World War. Up until then it was relatively scarce of how much information could be obtained firsthand. A lot of people from the war didn't really like to talk about the war itself because of the atrocious and arduous conditions they fought under. But since learning about the history of the First World War, it's been, as I say, a great passion of mine. And the First World War basically all started off with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo with his wife Sofia. Assassination was carried out by a Serbian person called Gavril Ciprel, and he thought that Serbia was all part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Well, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, after the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, blamed Serbia on the atrocious conditions, and so they decided to go to war with Serbia. And to be able to do that, they needed the help of the Germans, so the Germans became part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Well, the Serbians had on their side the Russians, and the Russians was all part of the Central Allied system, which was part of the French, British, and the Italian Empire.
I see. Yeah. Tell me about the Grimsby.
The Grimsby Chums.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Grimsby Chums, they was all part of the Pals Battalion, because when the war first started in 1914, the British only had about 235,000 troops, where the Germans had 1.75 million. And when the Germans invaded France, they knew they needed to be they gave themselves 40 days to get through to Paris, because they knew they couldn't fight the French on the Western Front and the Russians on the Eastern Front. But unfortunately they came up against the resistance of the French and the British soldiers. Now the thing was, at that particular time during the Battle of the Mons, when the British was trying to push the Germans back, they realised that they couldn't fight this war with the amount of men that they've actually got. So Kitchener then asked for volunteers. And between August of 1914 and February of 1915, they absolutely created an army of 1 million men. And of those 1 million men, there was a lot of Pals battalions, because they thought that if the soldiers could fight with the enthusiasm and dedication, they would be able to sort of fight together, you know, as one happy family. So the Pals battalions became part of the regiments. There was the Accrington Pals, the Manchester Pals, the Liverpool Pals, and the Grimsby Chums.
Tell me a little bit about your exhibition here that you have.
The exhibition that I have here is a commemoration of all of the soldiers that fought in the First World War. A lot of it has a lot of the personal memorabilia, and it's just great to be able to exhibit it to show how our past history has developed from the First World War. And as I say, it is all part of the memorabilia and the dedication of the soldiers that fought in that war. Well, we can talk about the Lochnagar crater. Now that was blown at 7:27 on the 1st of July 1916, 3 minutes before they went over the top. They went over the top on the first day of the Battle of the Somme 1916 at 7:30. That was blown at 7:27.
When you say that was blown, who blown that?
That was blown by the underground tunnellers.
That was blown by
that was blown with 24,000 tons of ammonol. And the crater itself is now about 100 metres wide and about 30 metres deep. And when that was blown at 7:27, it gave an indication to the Germans that something was up. Because prior to the knowledge that we didn't know at the time, the Germans had actually given themselves 3 minutes to get out of their trenches to man the machine guns. Unfortunately, when they said that it would be a walk in the park, the machine guns crisscrossed the no man's land and a lot of soldiers was killed, 60,000 casualties in the first day, and a lot of the battalions was all killed during that period of time. And one poignant reminder is the Grimsby Chums. Now the Grimsby Chums, when they went over the top with having nowhere to go, finished up in the Lochnagar crater, and unfortunately they couldn't get out, and a lot of lives was lost because of the machine gun fire. What we basically have here is a Charles Richard Sharp. He's from the 2nd Battalion of the Lincolnshire Regiment. He's buried in Newport Cemetery, and he got his VC at a place called Roy's Blanc by excavating a trench of 250 Germans, and he survived the war, and in 1976 he went to live with his stepdaughter, and when they came back they had such menial jobs, and he was a dust cart attendant, but he got all of the various medals there of the VC, his 3 other medals, his war medal, his medal to commemorate the battles, his Meritorious Medal for long service, and the Queen's Coronation Medal. And as I say, he was just one part of the regiment. We have another VC there that was won by a gentleman called Martin Arthur Locke. He was in the Royal Army Medical Corps. He won his first VC in the Boer War, and then got a bar to the VC where he won it twice in the First World War.
And all this memorabilia around here?
All of the memorabilia that I have, you know, you've got the 18-pound shell cases. First week, running up to the first day of the Battle of the Somme, they fired off 1 million rounds. We have the 18-pound shells there, the 12-pound shells, with all of the various items, you know, that go with it, you know, on the explanation of how the actual shells actually sort of worked, the shrapnel shells. The problem that with the blunders of the first day of the Battle of the Somme, which the superior officers knew about, was they did actually use the wrong type of shell, because first of all, for them to be able to actually cut the barbed wire, they needed more of a shrapnel shell rather than the manganese balls that was in the shells. So they knew at first hand that the barbed wire hadn't been cut. The second thing was from aerial photography. They knew that there wasn't any damage done to the German trench system. German trench system, they was quite a sophisticated system. They was on the high ground, hard surface. They was able to dig deeper and create elaborate rooms, bedrooms, living quarters and that, where the British was down on the low ground and they was up to their waist in filth and mud and sludge.
Tell me a little bit about the animals.
The animals, well, quite a poignant experience for the animals. Of different types of animals was used in the First World War. The horses, which was taken from the farms, they was used quite significantly in the cavalry charges, and then afterwards in pulling the large guns, and also for driving the ambulances. But the horses suffered under complete horrendous conditions because of the softness of the ground. A lot of them was up to they'd got their legs covered in the mud. We've also got various stories of other animals. In the evacuation of Gallipoli, we had one gentleman called John Simpson Kirkpatrick, and he'd been a donkey boy in South Shields. And when he was in Gallipoli, he realised, you know, that the donkeys was being used as water carriers, and he was a stretcher bearer over in Gallipoli, and he thought it would be a great way to transport the injured soldiers off the beaches, and he decided to use the donkeys. And he had 3 or 4 donkeys, you know. One of them was called Queen Elizabeth, another one was called Murphy, another donkey was called Duffy. But Murphy, after the war, was awarded the Purple Cross, which is more or less a sort of like a medal, which is equivalent, you know, to the Victoria Cross. And also there was cases of the pigeons. They was used for communications.
So a lot of animals are used there during.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, even the pigeons, the first use of the planes and that, they took the pigeons up in the air with them, and if they crashed or anything, then those pigeons would then be used as communication devices. There was homing pigeons. They'd go back to HQ, and they'd then find out, exactly, where they'd actually crashed. There was also used in the tanks and everything else, where there was no great communication systems at the time. And the pigeons did quite a sterling job. There's quite a lot of stories from the pigeons, that where they was really badly injured and carried on their duties regardless of what.
Now, most people know about the red poppies and poppy day and all that, but you have purple poppies for the animals.
Yeah, the purple poppies, is a sacrifice to the animals, not just used in the First World War, but all the conflicts around the world. It's a commemoration, as I say, for all the dedication and the sacrifice, that the animals gave us.
But not many people see the purple poppy around.
No, they don't. I think it's one of those unsung, unforgotten heroes of the war, where they didn't get anything for what they actually sort of did. Although there was the Dickens Medal, that was actually sort of given out later on for the pigeons and that. But they all served quite superbly. The dogs was even used for relaying the communication cables across the battlefields, where they would tie a reel of cable to its back, and it would run across the battlefields and be used for laying the communication wires. The cats was even used in small numbers. Yes, cats in the trenches for the rats.
Oh,
they suffered quite bad, arduous conditions. There was the lice, and there was a thing called trench foot, where the feet was covered in water at all time. Trench foot was quite a bad thing, where the foot used to sort of swell up to quite a significant size.
Well, we know about the soldiers getting trench.
They sort of they tried to keep the rats at bay, although they was very overpowering, and in the end, they just gave up as there was just feeding on whatever was available. The rats were, and they was just becoming, twice the size of the cats themselves. Yeah, there was quite unbelievable, really. But there was even when there was at war, the animals they served a great purpose, and a lot of people said, the war would never have been won without the animals. We're talking about the fact, that in total, you're looking at like 430,000 horses in total died. What we'd like to do today is invite you to the Village Church Farm Museum to celebrate our Purple Rein exhibition, and it's a sacrifice to all of the animals that was lost in all of the conflicts around the world. All of the various animals that was actually used in the war. There was the cow, the horse, we had the pigeon, the dogs. We had all sorts of different animals that played a major role in how the war was fought.
What's this exhibition going to be here for?
This exhibition will now run up until about the 31st of October.
Well, thank you very much. If you'd like to come and see the exhibition, it's on till the 31st of October at the Church Farm Museum in Skegness.